Okay, so this is going to be part of my second video where I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I plan to do here on this vlog. I don't want it all to be negative and like, oh, I have mental illness every single time, because who wants to do that? I don't want to talk about it all the time. That's not how I live my life. Matter of fact, part of how I have success, I think, is trying to stay ahead of it. But I do think it's important to talk a little bit about my past, since in order for you to know the victory that I have now and move forward with me in joy and happiness, it might be beneficial for you to know a little bit about my past. Specifically today, I'm going to talk about what having bipolar and borderline personality looks like for me specifically, because I think it's different for everybody. Like, there's defining characteristics of these disorders, or illnesses, whatever word you want to choose there. My baby's awake, and so that's why I said part one of my video. I'm going to try to edit them together because I'm on borrowed time. She's swinging very quietly right now, but it's borrowed time, friends. But anyway, so back to what I was saying. These disorders, diseases, whatever illnesses that you want to say, they're different for everybody, even if there are defining characteristics. And so even for myself, they've been different for me, how they present through my whole life. And so I want to start by saying and making it super clear that just because I explain it to be one way doesn't mean that I'm negating somebody else's experience with having some type of mental disorder or illness, anxiety especially, because I also have anxiety, which anxiety comes with so many things. This piece of hair here is not my favorite thing. Nevertheless, so I just want to make that clear, okay? All right. I want to talk about my life. Okay. So she's falling asleep in her swing, which is going to buy me a good 15, 20 minutes to talk, which I won't talk the whole time. But I'm going to take advantage of my opportunity while she's sleeping. So I took a pause to make sure she was cool, and she's cool, and she's dozing, and I love it. So anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit about, again, what it means for me to be borderline and bipolar. The first part of it is the bipolar piece, is the manic and the depression. The manic piece is something that sometimes is sneaky. It tricks me and it sneaks in, and I don't even know what's happening. Nowadays, I make such good choices that it's usually just, it benefits me when I'm manic because have more energy. But I actually think I was manic when I made my first video yesterday, because I sent it to a bunch of people on my, that I know, that I feel comfortable with sharing. And I was loving the responses, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Everybody's so kind. Like, what was I so afraid of? And I woke up this morning and it felt like a dream. I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my gosh, did I do that? Like, did I make that video? Did I send that to people? What was I thinking? Oh my gosh, now it's out there. Everybody's gonna judge me. And that is the anxiety of it. But also, that's my clue that I was likely experiencing some manic behaviors the last few days, and it just manifested in making this video. Because for me, when I'm having a manic episode, some severe, some not severe, it usually is things I do impulsively. I do things that are impulsive. And so I think that's what happened yesterday, but there's no turning back now, because I want to do it. And that's why I say, I joke, for me, the manic sometimes is good now. Now, when I was younger, let's go back to my 20s, not so good, because my manic would put me in cycles of unhealthy behavior. So those unhealthy behavior cycles would be things that would cause me to lose my job, cause me to lose friends, cheat in relationships. I had a gambling addiction for most of my 20s. Yeah, real life, true story. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and I had some help getting out of that. I will leave that person anonymous. People that are super close know who helped me out of that, but nevertheless, real serious. I never did the promiscuous behavior. That was never me, but it's a huge part for a lot of people. Things that you wouldn't normally do. So when you're in a manic phase, a lot of times you're out of your normal characteristics. And like I said, when I woke up this morning, it felt like a dream. Yesterday, I was like, oh my God, I did that. That's part of it for me. So like I said, now, because I live a life that I'm proud of, and I make choices that I'm proud of, when I'm manic, they're not things that are like, oh my God, what did I do yesterday? Because I don't make choices like that anymore, because I don't put myself in situations to have choices like that to make. But like I said, in my 20s, not the case. So, and a lot of times I wouldn't know which way was up until it was too late, and there was a mess to clean up, a mess of some sort to clean up, whether it was I cheated in a relationship, or I hurt a friend, or I cut myself, because I mentioned self-harm, and I used to be a cutter. Again, I am no longer engaging in that behavior, but I did for a lot of years, and it's a very real part of my life. I have scars on my arms, and I have to live with that today, because when I meet new people, and they always look at it. Some people say stuff. Some people are like, "Oh, what happened there?" And other people just look at it and then look away as if I didn't see them look at it, and that's okay. I did that. I put those scars there. I gave myself that, and it's, again, a part of who I am. And I stopped apologizing for it some years ago, because I forgave myself for a lot of the things that I did when I didn't know what I was up against. Because this life is hard, and mental illness of any kind, quite frankly, I think if you have any depression or anxiety or OCD or any of these things, they're all hard to live with in this world, right? So I'm not trying to say that borderline and bipolar is any harder than the next thing. But what I know for me is, when you don't know what you're fighting against, and you don't know what you're living with, it's real hard to do things that would prevent your behaviors, or to know your triggers, because you don't know you're being triggered. So for most of my life, most of my 20s, I was diagnosed only with bipolar. And I couldn't get better. I could not get better. I just would go through these phases. I would just have these moments of deep, 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 deep darkness. And that is where I would have my, my cutting episodes, or my attempted suicide happen in those obviously that time period in my life. And then in my manic episode, I would be having the time of my life. I would be partying, gambling, whatever I wanted to do, not sleeping. Oh my gosh, I would not sleep for days. Just because that's what was happening, and I didn't know. And then I would start going to therapy, and I would be on all this medicine and still not getting better. And then I would surround myself with some negativity too. So that also is a game changer. When you surround yourself with like-minded people, game changer. My Aunt Monty always tells me that. My Aunt Monty is like my wise person. She guides me and she gives me things, and she always used to tell me that. She's like, water seeks its own level. And I never knew what it meant until I got myself out of a certain group of people and moved into a different group of people and met my best friend. And I was able to surround myself with positivity, and oh my Lord, did my life change. So, I kind of lost my train of thought, so I think I'm going to have to cut this video off. So I'm back. I'm going to attempt to put all three of these videos together because I had to stop recording just then because I lost my train of thought. But what I was trying to get back to after talking was how I was misdiagnosed for so long. So it wasn't until I was about 27, 28. I was in a new relationship, and I'm not going to talk specific relationships just for their sake. But this was a new relationship, and it was a really positive one. This person brought a lot of positivity to my life because he is a free spirit, and he lives his life just happy, and it rubbed off on me. And his friends and him are very close-knit, and they let me in that circle, and that also helped me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what loyalty is like. Like, this is neat. These people would, they're going to be friends forever. And it really taught me a lot. But it was within that time that I was actively trying to get better, because I always, I'd in and out of therapy. Some therapists don't work. Don't feel like just because you got assigned to a therapist, you have to stick with them. Sometimes they don't tell you what you need to hear. They don't tell you what you, and when I say what you need to hear is they don't guide you the right way, because a therapy isn't about giving you answers. Therapy is about guiding you to your own answers. But some therapists aren't right for you. They won't take you down the path you need to go down. I had a therapist for years that helped me live in the bad decisions and make excuses for the bad decisions that I was making. Just because, I don't know, because maybe it kept me going back to her. I don't know. But I look back and I'm like, my gosh, what a therapist you were. But that's not the point. The point is, it wasn't until I was about 27 or 28 years old and I saw a psychiatrist. And not the first time I'd seen one, but he was new to me. And after kind of going through what was happening to me at that time, he was like, have you never been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? And I'm like, no, I'm bipolar. And he's like, I don't think that's what you're working with. And he was shocked and awed from the behaviors that I exhibited, both in that session and through the things that I had shared with him, that I had never, of all the years that I had been going to therapy and all the different psychiatrists that I had seen, he was shocked and awed that nobody had mentioned borderline personality disorder to me. And so he diagnosed me with that formally. And I remember leaving that therapy session, and the guy that I was with at that time was waiting for me, and we sat by the water, and I was reading it. I was Googling what this was, even though the guy had given me some parameters. I Googled it, and it was as if somebody had written a memoir about my life and every relationship I had ever had. And I was like, oh my gosh, how is this the first time I'm hearing about this? Of all the work that I've put in to get nowhere and to consistently get up just to fall and get up and sabotage my life and get up and ruin everything I worked for and then, be back where I started. How has this never happened? So I started just becoming obsessed with reading about what borderline was really about, because what's great about borderline personality disorder, yes, I said it, great. How can I know it sounds weird, but what's great, in my humble opinion, is it's a behavior disorder, and behaviors can be changed and behaviors can be modified with work and effort. And for me, it was freedom. I was like, okay, now I know, because if you know me, you know I'm a goal person. I am a deadline person. If I have a goal, I'm getting it one way or the other. I may not always take the easiest route. I may not always get there the fastest, but I will always get there. And for me, when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, it was a game changer because I was able to read how to fix it, how to live with it. And my life changed. From that moment forward, I turned a corner and I got into some therapy, which, by the way, I would recommend to almost anybody that's dealing with any type of behavior issues, right? Um, even even anxiety, I think it would help with. It's called DBT. I did it 2 rounds. I've done 2 rounds of it. It stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. It's bigger now, so a lot of you have probably heard of it. When I first started it, it wasn't really that big. Sorry, my shirt's unbuttoned because I was feeding my kid earlier and I didn't button my shirt back up. But anyways, I did dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's different than any group therapy you'll ever do. It's more like school. Basically, they give you this binder and there's these different modules, and you don't go to group therapy to talk about your triggers and to talk about, oh yeah, I cut last night, or I binged and purged last night, or whatever. Yep, been there. Had the eating disorder thing too. Super fun. But anyway, you don't talk about all that. You talk about how you used the tools, and it just really, really, really makes you focus on solving the issue when it's happening. So learning how to stop yourself from crossing over this line of behavior. And because what would happen with me is I would cross over and it was too late. Like once I'm past that line, as far as a breakdown goes, there's no getting me back. You just got to ride it out. And unfortunately, once that line is crossed, that's when self-harm would happen or when bad things would happen. And so this therapy is really designed to help you not cross that line. I can't say it works for everybody. There are people in that group that I'm sure it didn't work for because they weren't ready for it to work. You have to really want to be better. I shouldn't say that because somebody's going to hear this and be like, you think I don't want to be better? That's not what I mean, but you have to be ready for it. And sometimes we think we're ready and we're not. Like I said, I had to do it twice. It helped me a lot the first time, but then I had something happen in my life that kind of set me back, and I was determined to never go back. And so I instantly went back. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to refresh. And they teach you things like mindfulness, which is huge, right? Meditation these days. But just ways to control your behavior and modify your behavior before it's too late. So for me, that is when my life really changed. I was about 28 years old, and then it's just been uphill since then, and I'm 34 now. I'm going to be 35 soon. But nevertheless. So for me, that was a turning point in my life. And now let me please be honest, and please let me tell you that it's not magic. Like I still every single day have to live with this darkness, that's always trying to get me. Like sometimes when I'm the happiest, it's like my brain is like, oh, you're happy, trigger. You don't deserve to be happy. No, 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 no. And it tries, which is a key thing is finding your worth. I'll tell you, most of us that have any kind of mental illness, depression, anxiety, anything, a lot of it is a lack of self-worth and believing that we're worth it. And a lot of those negative behaviors and self-sabotage, I think, happen because we feel like we deserve nothing else. And for me, exactly, or especially when my life was good, it's when I would trigger the most because I didn't think I was worth it. And I didn't think I was worthy of these people loving me. I didn't think I was worthy of these happy relationships, these jobs that I had. I didn't think I was worthy. And it wasn't until I decided I am worthy that I was able to change my life. I also didn't get there on my own. I want to tell a story about a dream that I had way back when that also guided me out of some darkness and saved me from another attempt at suicide. I was in a relationship that I thought I was happy in because this guy was great. But somewhere in me, I knew he wasn't right for me, but he loved me. And I was always just so hungry to be loved. Like, for most of my life, I just wanted somebody to love me. And so I stayed in this relationship far longer than I should have because he was such a kind person. And I started to cheat on him. And the person that I was cheating on him with was a piece of garbage. But he knew how to manipulate me. And nevertheless, I got myself into this really dark place because I was being loved, but lying to this person that loved me and wanted this other person to love me for some reason who was nothing to me. This person was nothing to me, but I wanted him to love me so bad that I was willing to throw everything I had worked for away just to get him to love me. I can't, like, even just thinking about it disgusts me because I think of that broken person and I'm like, God, how desperate were you really? But anyway, the longer that went on and the darker that I got, the more that I thought the only way out of this mess I had created was to kill myself. I couldn't get out. There was no way that I was going to be able to recover from this situation I had gotten myself in without hurting a lot of people, including myself. And so I thought the only way out is death. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I'm scared. I'm hurting. I was hurting so bad, which people that were there that were on the receiving end of the hurt, they didn't recognize that I was hurting too. I'm a kind person. And so hurting people is not something that I take pride in, but it's something I did a lot in my 20s. This is hard for me to talk about. I'm tearing up a little bit. But anyway, I decided this particular night that I was going to kill myself. I was home alone. So it wasn't for attention, because sometimes people are like, oh, it's attention seeking. I was home by myself, so it wasn't about attention. I just didn't see another way out. I didn't see a way out. So I decided that I was just going to do what I'd seen in the movies. I was going to slit my wrist and I was going to sit in a bathtub and I was going to let it happen, right? That's what I decided. Because that's what they do in the movies. It must work. I was on Ambien at the time for sleep, which I do not take anymore and I do not recommend taking, because while it is a powerful sleep drug, if you do not go to sleep on it, it's also very dangerous. So I had taken one and I wasn't able to go to sleep and I didn't sleep. And then that's helped me make my decision. So I got a razor and I got in the bath and I set off to do what I was going to do. And in my sickness, I remember lying in the tub full of blood and getting adrenaline from that success. I will never forget it. I was like, I did it. And then I laid there and let myself fade out, I guess you would say. And then all of a sudden, I was like, no. I don't know what it was. I just said no. And I got up and I bandaged myself up and I went to bed. And I went to bed ashamed. I was ashamed of myself. And when the person that I was dating got there, I didn't say anything to him. I was already bandaged. I was already sleeping, and he was working nights, so we got in the morning. But that night, I went to bed, and I had a dream. And the dream probably saved my life. So, in this dream, I was sitting in a room in a house that looked like the house that I currently lived in, but different. And I was sitting in the room with all of my friends, and but nobody was talking. I was sitting on this island, and everybody was silent. We were just there, sitting, no talking, just in each other's company. And I was sitting on the island with my head down in shame because of what I had done to myself with the cuts on my wrist. And because I ended up getting stitches. They were pretty gnarly. And in this dream, I sat there and I looked down and I was ashamed of myself, and I felt worthless, and I felt so many things. And in this dream, a man that you would picture as the textbook Jesus, right? The Jesus you see on the cross, the Jesus that people use as advertisement, walks up to me, and he just shows up. Nobody moves. Nobody in my dream is like, oh, it's Jesus. Nobody moves, anything like that. And he walks up to me, and he doesn't say a word, and he lifts my chin up, and he just looks at me, and then he grabs my wrist where the cut is, and he lifts it gently, and he flips it over where the cut is, and he puts his hand on it, and he said, I forgive you, and the scars vanished. And I woke up, and I have never felt that way in my life. I thought the scars were gone. They weren't. It was just a dream. But the power in that dream changed my life. It made me feel like, even though I didn't know yet what it was, made me feel like I had a purpose and that I was worth living. Now, not everybody believes in God. Not everybody believes in Jesus, whatever. And that's okay. My point of that story is I do. I have faith in God. And I believe that He's the reason I'm still here. Because it was touch and go. And I couldn't see my worth, but He always did. And I think that everybody out here, whether you're religious or not, I think having something to believe in is important, and it's a powerful, powerful tool in healing and living a healthy life with any kind of mental illness. That doesn't mean you have to believe in Christ. It doesn't mean you have to believe in, in a religious thing. It could be believing in yourself, or believing in family, but faith in something bigger than yourself is powerful. And so that's why I wanted to share that story. What was crazy about that story is I wrote it. As soon as I woke up, I wrote it in my journal. I used to keep a journal. Those are dark days. I wrote it. And then some years later, I was taking a class that I went to a Christian school, so we were allowed to talk about faith things. And I retold that story without having read. Years later, I retold that dream without having read it, and I told it verbatim how I wrote it, because it was that real and that life-changing. So anyway, that is one experience that I had in turning a corner, and it was shortly after that I got into this positive relationship, about a year. But that kept me alive long enough to survive the coming year that I had after that, which was not pretty at all. Okay, so this video I'm realizing is going to be way too long, so I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to go ahead and probably end it now. And then I'll talk more about my past again and what it looked like for me, but more focusing on today and the future soon, because I really want to focus on that. I really want to focus on the good stuff in my life, not all that yucky stuff. But like I said, if I'm doing it right, I might as well be real with it.